I was going to try to spring that whole proving a negative on you. And hang on, I had looked it up.
Do y'all see what she does to me? She spends time looking up ways to throw stuff at me while we're recording.
Yeah, because I wanted to be able to say, you know what that is, David? That is a negative claim is a colloquialism for affirmative claim that asserts the non-existent or exclusion of something.
So basically, two wrongs don't make a right.
There you go.
See?
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me, as always, is Donna Grindle of Card and Compliance. How's it going, Donna?
It's rocking and rolling, buddy.
So, for those who don't know, you and I both kind of took off in different directions last week. And so we're having to record more frequently now to catch back up. And there's a lot going on. And, as we're recording this, it's October, first part of October. And, we're frantically trying to get some episodes in. And, we got the Halloween episode that we kind of started a tradition of last year that we want to get done. And this month is also Cybersecurity Month. And so
we're on it.
Yeah. So in light of that, today we're going to talk about the most downloaded topic so far to date, which is ransomware.
I mean, like by far the most downloaded topic on our little podcast.
Yep.
Sponsored by
Card and Compliance, the number one Card and Compliance, the people that you do want to work with. We were joking before.
I was glad you're not doing my marketing.
Yeah, I didn't have anything written down. You put me on the spot there. But
I know.
But it's like you said before we started recording. Do you want to work with Card and Compliance, or do you want to work with OCR and HHS?
We're way more fun.
Yeah, a lot less stressful. So, this episode is definitely sponsored by Card and Compliance and HIPAA for MSPs.com on both of those.
.com.
So with the ransomware, now, I guess we shouldn't assume that people listen to the other one, nor should we assume they even know what ransomware is. But we have had some guidance on ransomware that come out from OCR. As a matter of fact, it came straight from Miss Samuels in a post.
Yeah. In the official method, yes.
Yeah. So, she still won't return my calls, but nonetheless, we will. I know she listens.
Well, I did like it because the post was your money or your PHI. New guidance on ransomware. Bum, ba, da, bum, bum, bum. And again, more evidence they are listening, as you said.
Yeah, they have to be. It just amazes me that we can talk about something and then literally weeks later you see almost word for word guidance out of OCR.
It's because we read the same news.
No. So you're completely missing it. Completely missing it. There's got to be a correlation between the fact that our ransomware listens went way up just before the guidance came out.
Or because the correlation may actually be that there's a lot of ransomware happening, which is why people are listening to us and the guidance came out.
Okay. You take
I'm the reality person.
You go your route and I'll go mine.
I live in the real world of paranoia and you go off and be your dreamer.
Yeah, well, they say ignorance is bliss. I'm a very happy man. So to go along with today, though, we have had a victim of ransomware recently in the news, which honestly, we could probably do this recording any week on the calendar and find somebody that got hit that week.
I had one right before I left for Florida that somebody was in the process of working out the contracts with us and got hit with ransomware.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that because they had listened to our podcast, that they it was some of the best decisions they made all day, and they had an idea of what to do. So
that's awesome. Well,
we saved the day.
We'll definitely be interviewing them in a future episode.
I've already hit them up for that.
There you go.
Got to let things settle down a bit.
I actually had a client that got hit a couple of weeks ago, and they couldn't open the attachment. So I don't know if it's because they didn't know how, or if the crypto prevent that we pushed out to all the clients actually blocked it. I'm not real sure which, but they didn't get it, which was very good. It was a smaller nonprofit, and they couldn't afford to lose everything they had, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's the big point, though, is it's happening everywhere, every day. And the fact sheet that came out with this big ransomware advice, ransomware and HIPAA advice, was that a new report said that on average, there have been, in 2016, 4,000 daily ransomware attacks. 4,000 a day. And that is a 300% increase over the 1,000 per day that was in 2015. So clearly, that's why everybody's listening, because it's happening left and right, and it's just pounding away. And because it works differently. We've talked about that ransomware is not like viruses and normal malware.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks you in. It's con men. It's the computer conning you. Well, not the computer. It's the people.
It's the people. Yeah, mm-hmm. and they get, you almost think that it can't get any more sophisticated, but it has, and it keeps evolving. And it, they even got, as a class I was in last week, they even talked about how now they don't just have an encryption key for your files, they actually have an encryption key for each file, and then an encryption key for all the encryption keys.
Oh no!
So you have to
That's a lot of ransom.
Yeah, so you have to unlock all the individual keys before they can then unlock the individual files. So there's no way you're going to get the encryption key off you might unlock one file, then you got to go through the whole process again to try to unlock the next file, and it just keeps going over and over again. So it's basically impossible.
Yeah, it's because people were finding ways to decrypt them somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that before, that some of the vendors are starting to try to build routines, the malware vendors, the anti-malware vendors rather. And so they've actively been trying to find ways to recognize and prevent these things. But as far as I know, the crypto prevent has been the best solution, and it just basically says where these things normally run, don't let it run.
Mm-hmm.
If they start running them somewhere else, we're screwed.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure
now we've said it. It's over.
Yeah, and I'm sure it changes. All the time. Is kind of just before we kind of got off on that, I was talking about the one that was in the news. It was the New Jersey Spine Center got hit with ransomware back in July, and of course we're just now hearing about it. But it encrypted their patient records. 28,000 patients were impacted in the breach. They paid the ransom. We don't know how much they paid, but they did pay it. But the article actually says that their antivirus software did actually detect the malicious software, but it detected it after it installed.
Yeah, after it had already run, it went, hey, you don't belong.
Yeah, oh, you shouldn't be here. Too late. So anyway, and it doesn't say what they were using or anything like that. And of course, you and I both know, as being technology geeks, that that's a whole cat and mouse game trying to get the right antivirus solution or anti-malware solution. And, it's always, at some point, the solution's winning. At the next point, the bad guys are winning, and it's just back and forth. It's almost like the radars and the radar detectors were back in the 80s. You had to buy a new radar detector every 6 months because they had new radars coming out.
Yeah, it just kept happening, didn't it? So, well, we should get through this because here we are doing what we do.
We ramble.
Yeah. But there are some good questions on this fact sheet, or FAQ. So what is ransomware? I think we've covered that.
Mm-hmm.
But they do make a point of saying that ransomware could also destroy or exfiltrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exfiltrate. I was even reading about one that they found that they think it's actually becoming a worm. So a worm means it gets involved in one machine and then it's able to worm its way to other machines so that it can further. It propagates.
Propagate.
That's right. So I thought this was interesting. Can HIPAA compliance help covered entities and business associates prevent infections of malware, including ransomware?
Great question.
Yeah. You know, we being technical people are going to say, maybe.
Maybe it should say, can proper HIPAA compliance?
Well, you know, and not even then. You know, we just talked about, I mean, if some of these ransomware tools, you know, they got hit because somebody went, you know, we talked about it last week, I think, where you're talking about the websites are now, you know, kind of like drive-by attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know how these things are going to hit. So it's hard to say for sure, but technically, yes, if you're following the rules, you've got a good chance of preventing it.
I think if the question was reworded a bit, that instead of saying it would help prevent it, if it would more properly, it would probably say it would help you recover from it. Because if you are following HIPAA, then you should have a backup and recovery plan in place, which basically negates what ransomware even does to you. Yeah, it'll go in and encrypt your files and all that, but if you have a backup, you just flush it all out, bring in your backups, and you're back in business. So
unless it exfiltrates.
Well,
bam, I got you.
No, because if you're backing up somewhere else off-site, then it can't exfiltrate your backups.
No, it exfiltrates the data out to someone who has no business with it. The backup isn't going to solve anything. They still got it. So
that's not what the question. The question doesn't say that.
Can it prevent it? But the bottom line is, if you have security awareness and training, you do a risk analysis, and you're aware of who could be susceptible to these things, and you make sure you're doing it, and you have some sort of malicious software controls in place, and you limit access control. That's another huge thing, is if I don't have authority to go out and change that folder on the network, I can't encrypt it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things that would actually, if not prevent, it would at least mitigate its ability to work.
Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing, and we say this all the time, the biggest thing is making sure that the users understand what to do and what not to do. It's the people, it's the training, it's the processes.
And that's under security awareness requirements of HIPAA. And you're right. That is the biggest thing that we need to worry about. And another point, ironically, were you reading ahead? I know you weren't, because you never read ahead. Question number 3 is, can HIPAA compliance help recover from infections of malware, including ransomware? So see, we've already hit that. They did ask it the way that you said. They should, and yes, if you're doing what you should be doing, you should have a plan,
mm-hmm.
and you should know how you're going to react and what you're going to do. And our ransomware response planning episode, that has been our number 1 downloaded episode, would be a good place to start if you don't have a plan.
Yep.
So this one though, and I'm interested to see how you would answer this. Just randomly ask this question. How can you detect if your computer systems are infected with ransomware?
It's pretty easy because it will usually pop up and tell you, hey, dude, you owe me some money.
An entity would typically be alerted to the presence of ransomware only after it's done its duty, you know?
You will know. It won't be, I think I got ransomware. No, you will know you got ransomware.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, sometimes you might notice it because it starts trying to encrypt things and it just sucks the system dry that you're working on and those kind of things.
Yeah, why is my system running so slow?
Yeah, what's happening? Why is the disk drive going, yee?
Yeah.
That thing's pegged out. What's going on? So you might notice it there, but until you get, I don't know any other way that you would learn about it until it's bad.
Yeah. And let me say this, only because it drives me nuts when people call me about this. But let me tell you, the 800 number on your screen is not Microsoft. It's not FBI. It's not free tech support. It's the bad guys. Stop calling them and let them into your computers.
Please don't do it. Please don't do it.
I've had more than one time people call me and go, yeah, I called the number on the screen and the guy's in here trying to help me out now. And I'm like, what? Unplug it. Just don't even shut it down. Just pull it out of the wall.
We've had to deal with those moments too. It makes us kind of nauseous whenever it happens. So, but that is a good point about the FBI, the Secret Service. They want you to notify them when you have been hit with ransomware. And so your response plan should include local numbers for those guys. And I think we probably have that information in our response planning stuff somewhere in our previous episodes. But they do want you to have a plan to respond. And that's one of the things that HIPAA tells you to do. Have a plan for a security incident.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what should you do if you are infected with ransomware? Unplug it.
Yeah, just jerk it out of the wall.
Turn everything off.
Because you don't want it to propagate.
Don't let it propagate. Stop it.
Exfiltrate.
If you can turn everything off, you can have a better chance of isolating things. And you also don't want to just panic and start restoring things, because you do need to get the information to know how you were attacked and to be able to isolate how it got in.
Mm-hmm.
That is an important thing. And the FBI and Secret Service and all of the forensics people will say, don't just panic and start restoring stuff, because we do need to figure out how this happened and where the infection came from. And if you just wipe everything, we've lost all the evidence.
Yeah. But the bad thing is, I mean, living in reality here, most people don't have the time to let their computer be out of commission for days while somebody else does an investigation on it and all that. So typically that's what they're going to say, wipe it clean, let's start over, let's get it back going. I got to have this machine up and running.
Again, the reason to be prepared.
So now we need to have a spare machine.
Well, not just that, but it's like the group that are my new client that, they had an immediate plan to go to paper, and they activated that plan. That's what you should do. You should activate that plan like any other crisis. And yes, you need the computers up and running, but activate that plan so that you can properly handle the situation, and then potentially allow portions in once you've done some assessment of where the problem's occurring. So it's again a business decision. Because if you can't prove what happened and where it came from, it's going to really limit your ability to prove that exfiltration didn't happen. And that takes us a perfect segue. Perfect, I say. Segue to question number 6.
Yes, which is a question there was a lot of fighting about a few months ago on the internet around.
Oh my God, people having a fit.
Oh, it was just, for those people in the HIPAA sphere, we could not agree on this question. And it really just kind of depended on how what side of the bed you fell on. But the question is it a HIPAA breach if ransomware infects a covered entity's or business associate's computer system? Man, that caused a lot of ruckus.
Yeah. Well, it still is, though. And their answer tried to say, yeah, it is a breach. But everybody,
kinda, maybe.
Yeah, depends on what you can prove.
Yep.
And that's really what we've said before. It depends on what you can prove.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of proof does not mean that you can prove it. Their point was, under the rules, the acquisition, access, use, or disclosure of PHI in a manner not permitted, which compromises the security or the privacy of the PHI, is a breach. Okay, that's what the law says. So if it's encrypted as the result of a ransomware attack, a breach has occurred because the PHI encrypted by the ransomware was acquired. So because unauthorized individuals have taken possession or control of the information. So even if they didn't take possession of it, they have control of it. So this is a disclosure not permitted under the privacy rule. Okay. You can argue that all day, but the lawyers have said the next piece, though, they say, if you can demonstrate, and this gets back to that forensic need, if you can demonstrate there is a low probability that it's actually been compromised using your 4-factor assessment, then a breach has to be presumed.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't, have the forensics and the information available to give a good reason to believe that nothing's really left the system, then, I'm kind of in that gray area where I don't think anything's gone wrong, but I got to tell you. I mean, how many of those do we see?
99.9%.
Well, there's a lot of them, and particularly now with this new ransomware guidance. But and then question number 7 takes it further and says, okay, well, how can we demonstrate the low the low probability of compromise, like the 4-factor assessment?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as any lawyers would do, they told you what the 4-factor assessment is. A thorough and accurate evaluation of the evidence acquired and analyzed as a result could help you process above by revealing, for example, the exact type and variant of malware discovered, the algorithmic steps undertaken by the malware, communications, including exfiltration attempts, and whether or not it propagated.
Our 2 favorite words.
I know.
So basically what all this is basically saying here is call your IT guy.
Yeah, you better know somebody. And it better not be, I got a guy.
I got a guy.
Or, my neighbor's son who's in college is really good with video games and computers.
Yeah.
Or even worse, in middle school. So,
Yeah,
they know about how to run a business. Anyway, the 4 factors still have to be addressed. And the question is, and the big reason that you want to gather as much information as possible is, can you answer those in a way that demonstrates there's a very low probability that anything's gone wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And that gets back to your point of, I want this computer up and running. Okay, well, if we don't get any documentation and spend the time to do that, we can get it back up and running. But that means we need to go ahead and make a breach announcement that we had ransomware and we don't think anything happened, but here you go.
Yep.
So there's your business decision. Do you want it fast or do you want it quiet? Like some of those guys with the Dark Overlord, they want it quiet. They just don't want to pay. So
yeah, what is it? Fast, cheap, or quiet? Pick any 2.
Yeah. You can go for it. So, and moving on, the question number 8, is it a reportable breach? And now this was fun for me. Is it a reportable breach if the PHI encrypted by the ransomware was already encrypted to comply with HIPAA?
It was double encrypted.
Yeah, the encryption was encrypted. And I love the first sentence. This is a fact-specific determination.
That's a very high-dollar way of saying maybe.
Yeah. We should start saying that. Whenever somebody asks us a question, send something in. This is a fact-specific determination. So, that goes back to the understanding of encryption. If it was encrypted in a certain way, but you're in the middle of reading it.
Yeah, so it's not encrypted.
Yeah, it decrypts it. So, and I don't think people understand the encryption concepts in a lot of ways. Oh, is it encrypted? Yes. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
As
you're using it, it is not encrypted.
Yeah, the full disk encryption or folder encryption or any of those things, you've got to know exactly how it's set up and how it's configured. And so when everybody says, well, we're encrypted, and I say, how? Then all of a sudden things come out of the blue. We don't know. So it is important to know that just because you have a file encrypted, if it was decrypted at the point in time that it was encrypted, then it's not secured. Right. Now, if it's sitting out there on disk, and this is the good thing for the guy that was, he had listened to us. So he had started using tools to encrypt the things. And it was really only a few things that he had found in file shares because of what we had been talking about. And just network file shares. It wasn't the whole database. It wasn't anywhere near those, just spreadsheets and those kind of reports. but he had started encrypting them with encryption keys.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they were open at that time, even if you encrypted them again, you're still not going to be able to get them.
Right.
So, yes. But if I had it open and I was working on it,
No. Which, and most people, actually the document too, I guess it is good to say that they do kind of go into a few paragraphs explaining how encryption, not really how it works, but more so here's some examples of how you might have encryption working and it not really be encrypted. And then here's some examples of how you can have it working and it be encrypted. And most people probably do full disk encryption, which, for those listening who don't understand that concept, when your computer's, booted all the way up into Windows or whatever you're using, at that point, the encryption is not really doing anything for you. It's really for the times when the computer shut down or the laptop shut down, whatever, and it's stolen, or somebody takes a hard drive out of it and tries to access the data. And that they can't get into it at that point. So when it's actively, up and running, then it's not really doing anything for you. But
once you enter that encryption, that passcode, it decrypts the disk so I can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying, David?
In quite a few words less, yes.
So basically what we are learning here from HHS is that what you and I had said originally is true.
Mm-hmm.
So yet again, bam, we're excited to know we're not lying. And we're not making stuff up. Well, we are making stuff up, but it's actually working out for us. But the number one thing that whole discussion was about prior to this coming out was, could it possibly be a breach? And the whole argument was, well, it's not being sent out and all this, but we were making the point that you have to be able to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the entire HIPAA thing. It's all cybersecurity. If I can't prove that nothing happened, I must assume something happened.
Yep. And it's hard to prove, unless you're going to get the right people involved, the right tools involved, put the right financing behind it. I mean, there's certain things you could possibly do, like maybe, if you had, let's say you had 50 gigabytes of files encrypted, and you go check your threat management or firewall logs and you didn't have, you only had like 500 megs of traffic going out, then you could say all of it didn't get out, but you really can't say none of it got out. but the numbers just don't match up. So you could see that there's no way somebody took all that data because the sizes didn't match up. But there again, you still can't know what, or right, unless you've got something that maybe shows you that type of granular data. I can't think of anything, but it's sure it's out there.
Well, it's that term of proving a negative or negative proof or evidence of absence. I like saying it that way.
There's a high probability it didn't happen.
That's right. A proof of impossibility or evidence of absence.
Well, luckily it doesn't say you have to prove it didn't happen. It says you have to prove there's a low probability. So
yeah,
I can live with that. I don't need specifics.
Yeah, I was going to try to spring that whole proving a negative on you. And hang on, I had looked it up.
Do y'all see what she does to me? She spends time looking up ways to throw stuff at me while we're recording.
Yeah, because I wanted to be able to say, you know what that is, David? That is, a negative claim is a colloquialism for an affirmative claim that asserts the non-existent or exclusion of something.
So basically, two wrongs don't make a right.
There you go.
See?
So you have to prove the negative, or at least make it a reasonable proof that a reasonable person would believe nothing happened. Otherwise, it's a HIPAA breach. So in that whole example of we've got one tearing through, we take everything down, we get the information we can, and maybe we're able to see some of it, but not all of it. But at least if you're able to see some of it, you see where it started, and you can kind of track what was involved and who was logged in at that time, at that, I think in a terminal server or whatever, you can track a lot of these things if you're doing log activity, information activity logs like you're supposed to do under HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing what you're supposed to do, it should make it easier to recover. It should give you some chance of it not happening. And it will certainly give you the opportunity to keep from having to announce to everybody, we can't prove nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. And I'll give you a hint. Start looking at email and web traffic first.
Yeah, it's almost always going to be email right now. But web traffic, it's going to start increasing on. But I think we've got a fighting chance to try to control those in some other ways. But an individual clicking on a link seems to be something that people's finger just starts twitching. They can't control themselves.
Well, we've been trained to do that. I mean, think about it. We're trained to click links. I mean, you have an email come in. And of course, it's also worth saying that these emails typically don't say, click here for ransomware.
No.
It's usually, I get these emails a lot. I get ransomware emails a lot, but I just know what I'm looking for. And more times than not, it's package delivery confirmation, click here for your package. I'm like, I hadn't ordered anything. And it's got the UPS logo on it or the FedEx logo on it or whatever. I know that's not what it is. Or it's, click here for your flight information. I'm like, that's funny. I'm not going anywhere.
That's right.
And sometimes it's a zip file or something like that. But it's always going to come looking like it's something legitimate. It's going to look, I've seen somewhere it says, so-and-so mentioned you in a Facebook post. And I mean, who doesn't want to click that? Well, what are they saying about me?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
take a minute and read the screen.
Yeah, what they're saying is you just got infected. And a lot of times if you hover, and be very careful, but if you hover over the link, take your fingers way off the mouse buttons.
Yeah. Don't click, just hover. It'll show you where it's going somewhere on the screen.
Right, it'll tell you. And most of the times it's not going to Facebook or UPS or wherever else. It's taking you somewhere different.
RTFS, read the freaking screen.
A very clean way to put it.
That's right. We have to keep our clean note. So what we really, really, really want you to do is not click on stuff, don't open stuff, and make sure that all of your users actually learn about this constantly. Make them paranoid to open things. Because if you do, you've got a fighting chance. If you do the things you're supposed to do under HIPAA and you do effective security awareness training, the whole idea when I go in places, if people don't say I scared them and I haven't done my job.
And if they do click on something, then that's when you pull out the old typewriter and put it in front of them and say, this will be your new computer for the next month. They won't never do that again. That
or you bring in the gardening shears and you say, I'm cutting off a finger or you're using this. Yeah. I know that it's hard for people. They're working. They're just trying to do their jobs, a lot of them. As busy as I've been, I have to concentrate. Okay, I'm in email. I need to pay attention to what I'm looking at. And I have things sorted so, my regular people I email with come to the top. Mm-hmm. And things that come directly to me. And we've got the new, I guess it's now G Suite, Google Apps, whatever the name du jour is. But their spam filters is very, very good. And that's one of the biggest reasons that we like to use them. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I want to get an example, I just go dig through my spam filter.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm going to find it in there. Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. I think we're done. That's ransomware and HIPAA. It's no new news is no new news.
It's the same thing we said in the last one. It's just verified by OCR.
Yeah. So, keep focusing on doing what you're supposed to be doing under your compliance requirements, but ramp up your planning so that you know what to, because you there's no guarantee you can stop this stuff. So ramp up a plan and make sure you know what to do if you're hit, so you're prepared. Keep doing what you're supposed to be doing along the way. and train like crazy.
Yep.
Every day, send something out.
Tell your people that being in the email is like driving a car at 120 miles an hour. You've got to be on high alert because, and that's really what they're doing. Just like you said earlier, you're working like crazy and you're trying to get things done. Everybody's trying to cram 12 hours worth of work in an 8-hour day. So you're working at 120 miles an hour and you're just clicking stuff as fast as you can go sometimes. And that's what gets people in trouble. So just got to be diligent.
Mm-hmm. Just be careful. Be careful out there, people. It's scary. It's very scary.
Just get off the internet. Go back to paper and pencil.
Can you see that? First of all, our job's kaput.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's don't do that.
I'll be back to delivering bread.
Yeah. He's David the bread man.
All right. So that's our show for today. And guess what, Donna? I have an announcement to make.
Oh, bum.
So as of today, we are now geared up and ready to accept sponsorships. We are. Yeah, we are. New news for you. I've known about it for a while. So if you happen to be listening and you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, let us know. We do have some guidelines and some rules and regulations, and policies and procedures and breach notification. No, we don't have all that, but anyway.
I had to write a policy and procedure for it. I did.
Yep, we do. Yep. So we have all that. So I know we've had some people in the past that have asked, and that's not something we were interested in doing at the moment until we got to a certain place. And now that we have millions of listeners, we're now ready.
Billions.
To take on sponsors. So if you have a product or service that fits the niche, because we're not going to just throw anybody and everybody out there. So if it fits, it's a good fit. If you can pass our due diligence, all that good stuff, then let's talk. We may put you out there as a sponsor on our podcast.
It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we're giving you access to our people.
That's right. We love our people.
We do. Speaking of that, you need to show some love back to us. So go to iTunes and review this podcast. You can also share it out on your social media of choice. Visit us on the web at helpmewithhipaa.com. You can even ask us a question and we may feature it in a future podcast. So remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.